This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, Brewers Outlet, and NIL Game Changers. Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Purdy Insurance, Brewers Outlet, NIL Game Changers, and Sunbury Motor Company. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
And we welcome everyone to this Monday, brought to you by our good friends at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury, Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Kia, Hyundai, best in new inventory, great pre-owned inventory with the Sunbury Motors guarantee. Terrific service department that backs it up every step of the way, whether it has to be routine or difficult. Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury, Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. It is always a pleasure to be joined by the Hall of Famer Ray Didinger. Hello, Ray. How are you today? It's always great to hear you on the other end of the line. Ray, here it is, June. It's, usually the dead time of the year with the NFL. But It's amazing how the NFL seems to dominate the news cycle no matter what. When do you recall in your career where that started to be the pattern, where the NFL dominated no matter what the season happened to be?
I think it was probably when the draft, when the draft became a thing. When ESPN was born, right around 79, 80, and they began televising the draft live, which nobody thought could possibly work on TV. But millions of people tuned in, and all of a sudden the NFL had a second season, and it became the draft. And then they just from that point on, they just very carefully strategized all the other stuff and worked around it with the the free agency, and then the mini camps, and then the combine, and they've now created basically a 12-month-a-year NFL season where the NFL and, the release of the schedule, which now becomes a primetime show. Right. I mean, who saw that coming? So the NFL has very cleverly designed this thing in a way that they're in the news 12 months a year. And that's one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons why it's the biggest sport in the country by leaps and bounds.
And part of that, too, is I feel like they've decided to say, we're the NFL, we can venture into anybody's territory. The NBA at Christmas Day, now the NFL's taking it over. What I found interesting, though, is that they scheduled 2 games on Saturday the 21st, which is the opening round of the college football playoff. And it's the 4 teams that will be playing on Christmas Day. So I understand with the thought process behind it. But college football is the feeder system for the NFL. Why would they do that, in your opinion?
Because they can, and because they're the NFL.
Exactly. Yeah.
They've got the Eagles are kicking off their season on a Friday night, playing in Brazil. And the NFL always say, well, we're never going to play on Friday night because that's for the high schools. Friday Night Lights. That's when everybody wants to go support their high school team. Well, when the NFL had the opportunity to put a primetime game there and kick off the Eagles season and play the first game in South America, they forgot all about the high schools and said, yeah, let's go for it. I mean, I actually think, Steve, I don't like it. I'm sort of old school in the sense that, when I grew up with pro football was a one-day-a-week operation. I mean, everything was played on Sunday. There wasn't even any Monday night football then. And it was great. I thought that was one of the things that made it great was there was a rhythm to it. I mean, you just you played on Sunday, and then you had the rest of the week to prepare and look ahead to the next game, and and then you played the next week, and there was that nice little bit of lag time, and every game became an event. Every game became special, and I think the way they're going now, with games 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 8 o'clock on Sundays, and Monday nights, and then Thursday nights, and showcase games at the end of the year. I mean, there's a little bit of that special quality that's kind of gone now, and I don't know that the NFL will ever suffer by overexposure, but I think that there's a diminishing returns thing that in terms of, for those of us that remember when football was 1 day a week, I feel like something has been lost.
See, I've always been one that was the same as you. Friday's high school, Saturday was college football, the NFL was Sunday. So you and I are the exact same when it comes to that. Yet I'll freely admit to people when college games are played on Friday night, I'll say, hey, that's for high school. And I'll freely admit I'm one of the guilty parties. I'll watch the college game on Friday night. So, I am guilty of being a hypocrite when it comes to it.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, Steve. But look. There's no bigger football zealot than me. I mean, I am all in for sure. But I do feel. I mean, there are sometimes Thursday night football. If I look and it's Tennessee against you name it, Tennessee against Cleveland, I might not watch. I really might not watch. I may just. I agree. I kind of feel like I need a break. I need a break. I'll be there on Sunday when they kick it off on Sunday. But right now, I don't need to watch, especially when you see, the Thursday night product, which I think is so often compromised. I just think it just seems so inherently unfair to me that they ask these teams to play on Thursdays. I mean, when Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving was a special. Everybody understood Thanksgiving was one special Thursday that you played. But to force Thursday night football into a 17-game schedule every week, to me, just seems like it's unfair to the players who have to play in those games and the coaches who have to prepare.
Yeah. Exactly. I also think it's unfair to the fans because I think they're getting an inferior product on Thursday night because of those circumstances.
Right. Yeah. And there's the other part of it that is, I don't want to use the term hypocrisy, but maybe that's what it is. But I mean, whenever you see Roger Goodell make the statement that the most important thing for all of us is player safety. Is really? I mean, you're going from a 16-game schedule to a 17-game schedule. We're heading on to an 18-game schedule. You got teams playing Sundays, Mondays, Thursdays. But you're going to tell us that player safety is what you're concerned about? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, that's because one of the bigger parts of the NFL season now is called the attrition rate, which you brought up the 18-game schedule, which I was going to talk about. What is your thought about going to 18? Look, Goodell's wanted this for years. The NFL owners have wanted this for years, an 18-game schedule. They've been doing it incrementally because they've had to. But what's your thought on it?
I don't like it. I mean, I know we all knew it was coming, but I don't like it. The owners will do whatever they can to monetize the product. I hate to use that term, but that's the term that they use, the product. And I just think it's wrong. I mean, it all comes down now to not the best teams who's going to win it, but it's to, which teams are still standing at the end of the year. And the league is trying to say that, we'll get it up to 18 games now, but we'll only go down to 2 preseason games. So it's really going to be the same thing. Well, no, it's not. I mean, the real players, the veteran players, they're not playing in the preseason. No. They're taking a preseason game away doesn't help them at all. If you're attacking another regular season game, well, yeah, they're going to play that one, and so you're making them play an 18-game season. You use the term attrition, Steve. That's the only way you can describe it. I mean, that's the reality of the NFL, and when you see what these guys go through, it just really bothers me that at a certain point, there's a part of me that I just say, how much money do you guys need to make? I mean, really, aren't you making enough now? Do you really, to use the old the movie Wall Street line, how many yachts do you want to water ski behind? I mean, it's at a certain point, make decisions that are in the best interests of the game, not necessarily the best interests of your bottom line, but the best interest of the game. And I'm not sure, and I really don't feel that an 18-game regular season is in the best interest of the game.
But here's the other part, too, under the category of how much money do you want. They're trying to internationalize what's going on. So there's a couple of games in Germany. We all know about England. Now this game in Brazil. It's the fans of Philadelphia, as an example, that built your league. And you're taking a game away from them to move it to Brazil? That group in Philadelphia built what you have today. They're part of the foundation why you even have a shot at making all that money. You're taking games away from them. See, I'm bothered by that.
Yeah, I am too. And they try to explain it by saying, "Oh, this is a great opportunity for the people in Philadelphia. They can now go down to Brazil and see the game, and they'll make a great trip, and they'll go someplace they probably would have never gone otherwise. But now they get to go and spend a weekend in Brazil, and listen, they will. I mean, I guarantee you that when you tune in that game, it's going to sound like Lincoln Financial Field because there's probably going to be 30,000 Eagles fans that are going to be there because that's the way they travel. I mean, everywhere the Eagles go, there are that many people that go with them. But does that make it a good idea? I don't think so. And I just think that with all the things that are involved with that kind of travel and everything that's involved with taking a football team and moving them to another country and playing in strange surroundings and all that kind of stuff, I just don't think if the idea is putting the best possible product on the field, which is kind of what I thought that the league should be doing and the commissioner could be concerned with, then I don't think that that's serving that purpose. Will you sell more T-shirts in Brazil? Will you sell more hats? I guess so. But is that a really good reason for doing it? I don't think so. I would rather just, you got a game to play it in Philadelphia.
Well, because, again, it goes back to what we just talked about. When you look at the game being moved out of there, we're going to go to an 18-game schedule. That'll be more home games for everybody. Not necessarily. They're moving them all over the lot. And the fans here then have to pay extra money to go see them play in Brazil. I mean, you already have season tickets. How much more money you need to keep putting in to see the team play?
I know. That's unfortunately, that's the mindset now. And, that's why when I first got into the business and I first started covering the NFL in 1970, I mean, a lot of the old owners were still around. I mean, Art Rooney was still around. Wellington Marrow was still around. I mean, you could talk to these guys. George Halas was still around, and you could talk to these guys, and they were true sportsmen. And, they were the guys that started this league, and they started it for the best of reasons. They wanted to put the best product on the field, the best players, and they feeling that the best players would create the best game. And that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what they built, and good for them. But the problem is subsequent generations of owners bought into this for very different reasons. I mean, they got into this to make a lot of money and sell a lot of product and develop a tremendous amount of social clout, which they've done, but at the expense of the game, I think. I mean, I can't tell you how many long conversations I had with old Art Rooney, the chief. And when he would, he would just sit there and tell stories about, when Whizzer White played for the team and Johnny Blood was the coach, and you didn't know if he was going to show up from one week to the next. And that was the foundation that the NFL was built on, and that was part of its charm. But I think over the years it's grown tremendously, and it's now infinitely more lucrative. But is it better? I don't know that I could say that.
Well, I mean, let's face it, the old guard owner would be Pete Rozelle when he wanted to get one TV contract and split the money, went to Wellington Mara and say, hey, look, because New York could dominate whatever they wanted. And
Sure.
Wellington Mara thought it was best for the NFL if Green Bay had an equal shot as the Giants. I don't think there's an owner today that would do that. Do you?
No. Oh, no. And that's why they created the whole concept of revenue sharing.
That's right.
Which allowed the league to flourish and which allowed a franchise in Green Bay to not only survive but be able to be competitive with the New Yorks and the Chicagos and all of that. And I mean, that kind of feeling, that kind of collaboration, the willingness, hey, guys, we're all in this together. I don't think these owners feel that way at all. I remember interviewing Paul Brown, and Paul Brown talking about when he created the Cleveland Browns back in the 40s when it was the All-American Football Conference before they joined the NFL, that he had to pay the radio station in Cleveland to broadcast their games. He paid them to broadcast their games. Now you look at what the rights fees now, what radio stations and TV stations pay to cover the NFL games. You tell them about what happened in Cleveland back in the 40s, they say you're kidding. But no, that's true. I mean, Paul Brown actually paid the radio station in Cleveland to carry their games. Well, we'll certainly never ever see that day again.
How often have you ever talked with Roger Goodell? And when you have, what impression did he give you?
I've never spoken to him one-on-one.
Really?
I've been in a number of group interviews with him, but I've never had the opportunity to sit down one-on-one with him the way I did with Pete Rozelle back in the day and Paul Tagliabue. I just haven't had that opportunity with Roger. But my view of him is that he's he's a guy who's he's there for one purpose, and that's to serve the owners, and it's all to do whatever they want to do to make more money. And I've always felt that the commissioner should be there to do one thing, and that is be the custodian of the game, the guy that makes the decisions in the best interests of the game, ultimately the best interests of the fans. So, if I would think a real commissioner, if the NFL owners had come to him and came up with the idea of, hey, we're going to play a game every Thursday starting this season. We're going to play Thursday night football, not just Thanksgiving now. We're going to play night games every Thursday for 17 weeks. A real commissioner would say, no, we're not doing that. What are you kidding? Exactly. What are you asking the coaches and players to do? No, that's going to throw the whole schedule. No, we're not going to do that. Yeah, but we'll make a lot of money. Yeah, but it's not the best thing for the game. That's what a real commissioner would do. But Roger is, he's running a whole different operation with a whole different mentality. And the idea now is to make all the money you possibly can. And to that end, he's doing a fine job. But is he serving the best interest of the game and the fans? I don't think so. I mean, when you look at the schedule, when you look at what they do, playing regular season games in Buffalo in December, and playing playoff games in Green Bay in January, with people literally risking frostbite to come and see them. Is that the best interest of the game? Oh, prime time, I understand the advertising value of that, but is that really serving the best interest of the players and the fans? I don't think so, but they're going to continue to do it because it's lucrative.
Yeah, Miami and Kansas City was below zero at night and on Peacock. There's your perfect combination. All right.
Hey, listen, my son was a cameraman at that game. My son,
that's right.
My son's a cameraman. He's a cameraman for NBC Peacock, and he shot that game in 40 degrees below zero. I have the pictures to prove it. And he was fully insulated because he wore all the stuff that he wore at Beijing when he was doing the Olympics, and he was still cold. So was that optimum conditions for players, coaches, or fans? No, but it made for good television, and everybody walked away richer.
Always a pleasure, no matter what time of the year. Ray, thanks so much.
I'm glad we finally connected there, Steve. Always fun talking to you, too.
Thanks. The great Hall of Famer, and he is the best of the best. The best of the best. Such respect for him. We'll come back. More in a moment. Great to have you with us today. Brought to you by Sunbury Motors on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Party time, game time, or just fun time. Doesn't matter what time it is because it's Brewers Outlet time. The beverage supermarket has the area's largest beer selection. Imports, microbrews, ciders, and domestics. Pick from over 100 ice-cold 12-packs and dozens of 24-ounce singles. Soda, snacks, hot sauces, fresh roasted peanuts. Make it one-stop party shopping, and don't forget the pickle bar. So whatever you're celebrating or just doing it up, Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street, Sunbury wants to see you. And thank you for your years of patronage.
You want your young athlete to get the most out of life and NIL. You need a roadmap, a strategic approach. NIL Game Changers help student athletes earn while they learn in their collegiate journey. Driven by former student athletes and coaches who work as NIL sports agents and content media designers, they'll guide both student and family, starting with high school students looking toward college and those already in college. Get a seasoned team of marketing experts with a background in athletics and coaching. Visit NILGameChangers.org, the ultimate destination for name, image, and likeness opportunities.
Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, Brewers Outlet, and NIL Game Changers. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
This half hour brought to you by Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Auto, home, life, business, boat, motorcycle, RV. You have multiple insurance needs, they handle them all. The goals are simple. Number one, make sure you're fully insured. Number two, do everything they can to save you money. Number three, customer service, day in and day out. They're great people who happen to be just terrific pros. All at Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Don't forget about the Purdy Memorial Golf Tournament, by the way. That will be taking place Wednesday, August 7th at the Susquehanna Valley Country Club to benefit the Greater Susquehanna Valley YMCA. All right. Still waiting on Steve Klein to join the show today. IUP with a great run, going to the national semifinals. And, they won their super regional. It was a historic season. How about that? Angelo State finally beat them.
Hey, I did not. Kalani's not answering the phone right now. We're on a roll this afternoon, Steve.
Well, okay. Stop using Kevin's personal number.
Yeah.
Because most people see that and go, I'm not picking that up. Are you kidding me?
We're just having a day right now.
It's okay.
I'm going to keep trying.
It's all good. Believe me, I've got plenty of things to say. We're good. All right. So, something I wanted to talk about, actual games. This transition that's going to be taking place with the change in conferences is so intriguing. Let's take Texas and Oklahoma. They're, of course, both going to go to the SEC. They finally get in, paid their way out, $50 million each on grant of rights and the buyout for the final year, and they get into the SEC. The job for Steve Sarkisian, all right, and the job for Brett Venables, or Porter Moser in basketball, or or Terry in basketball as well, is they have all new opponents to learn about. Even when Texas comes to playing Texas A&M, for goodness sakes, they haven't played Texas A&M in years. Now I realize that rosters change a lot, because I know in all of my pre-work, and I've done, I don't know, what have I done? 90% of the pre-work for the upcoming football and basketball seasons. I'm just waiting for more parts actually to come together for basketball. Football's done. Basketball's 80 to 90% done. But with the transfer portal, I'm always, teams recruit, but the change in personnel. Okay. I never expected Penn State outside of a bowl game to have the possibility of facing Will Howard at quarterback. But it turned out Will Howard transferred from Kansas State over to Ohio State. And when you've done this a long time, and I've been fortunate to have done this job a long time, you run into different situations that I think pay off in giving people perspective about, a current situation. So let's take this. All these schools are moving into these conferences. When Penn State went from independent to being a Big Ten team, I was talking to Joe Paterno about what are some of the bigger adjustments. Now, some people would have thought style of play or something like that. That's not what he brought up. He said, Steve, when I sit down, he says, and I throw a video in, and I remember he referenced West Virginia because they've been playing West Virginia every year up until that point. And he said, and I look at the left tackle for West Virginia. He said he probably played some as a sophomore or freshman, played a lot more as a junior or a sophomore. He says now he's playing full-time, or he was a starter the year before. He said, I could tell you, look at the video and say, you know what, he wasn't that great at this a year ago, but he's much better at it now. He's about the same as he was the year before here. He's still vulnerable here. Nope, he's much better. He was vulnerable there last year, but not this year. Because you had a read on the player. For Texas and Oklahoma, for example, and this is going to go for USC, Washington, Oregon, UCLA. They're going into this with all new opponents. They're going to have, now they'll face, let's face it, they'll face each other at some point. I mean, USC and UCLA are playing each other. Washington and Oregon are playing each other. But they're going to have to get to learn 7, depending on whether they're playing, outside of the rivalry games. They're going to have to get to learn 7 to 8 new opponents. Where, except for a transfer here and there they may have seen before, they haven't really looked at before. Conversely, it also works on this side, too, for Penn State. Penn State's coaching staff knows exponentially more about West Virginia, a non-conference game, than they do about USC, UCLA, Washington, and probably Wisconsin, and probably Purdue. Why? Why Purdue and Wisconsin? Minnesota has a lot of the same personnel, same coaching staff, so there's the tailback's different, the quarterback's different, but there are a bunch of guys that they have, some wideouts, tight ends, defensive guys that are there from 2 years ago that they at least have a read on as to whether they're better or not. Purdue is for the most part, an all-new coaching staff, new quarterback in Hudson Card, his second year there, but Penn State didn't play him last year. New wide receivers, the whole 9 yards. Wisconsin, Luke Fickell was not the head coach the last time Penn State played him in 2021. Tyler Van Dyke is now their quarterback. They run the air raid offense, so they are not 3 yards in a cloud of field turf pellets, modern term. Okay? And then, of course, when it comes to the personnel at Washington, USC, and UCLA, it's a whole new ballgame. Penn State knows, as a coaching staff, exponentially more about the opener and the personnel of the opener of West Virginia, a non-conference game, than they do conference games. When I talked to Chuck Barrett, the play-by-play voice of Arkansas before the Outback Bowl, and the last time I saw Chuck was actually a year ago because Arkansas was in the NCAA regional. They beat Kansas when Penn State played Texas. And I was talking to Chuck about Texas coming into the league, because we knew at that point Texas was coming in. And Arkansas played Texas that season in Fayetteville. In fact, blew them out. And I said, what's your thought on Oklahoma and Texas coming in? He said, Steve, Texas isn't tough enough. He says, Oklahoma is in the trenches. They're tough enough in the trenches. They can compete. He says, but Texas, not tough enough in the trenches. Now, that was his thought in that particular year, seeing them head-to-head. And Arkansas plays a physical brand of football up front. I think that narrative on Texas may have changed just a bit by what you saw last season. Now, look, they have the quarterback that can compete with anybody in Quinn Ewers. Right? They have to replace both the receivers. Worthy and Mitchell have both gone on to the NFL. So there's some things that will be different for them. But they're going to have to go toe-to-toe in the trenches. Now, they don't play Alabama this year. And you could see in the Alabama games, the one in Austin that Alabama won by 1, and the one in Tuscaloosa that Texas won by double digits, that they could compete up front. But they're going to have to learn everybody. I mean, they'll play 8 conference games. 7 will be of new opponents. They'll play Oklahoma, which will be a conference game. Even, as I said before, even the Texas A&M game. Even the Texas A&M game. They haven't played Texas A&M in years. So that's a learning curve for everybody. Same thing in this conference with USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington. Oregon's really good. Dan Lanning has an excellent defense, athletic. Question will be what they get out of their quarterback in Dylan Gabriel. Dylan Gabriel, when he played for Oklahoma, played really well. Dylan Gabriel, when he played for UCF, played really well. But he's also run into injury roadblocks along the way. They're not going to get the same quarterback play they got from Bo Nix, but they'll get really good quarterback play from a healthy Dylan Gabriel. Right? I mean, do I think that Ohio State's upgraded its quarterback play with Will Howard? Yeah. Is he C.J. Stroud? No. But are they upgraded from Kyle McCord? Yes. Right? No Caleb Williams at USC. But they got terrific play in the bowl game. 6 touchdown passes. Branch is back at wide receiver and is a returner. He's a dynamic return guy. Big question is going to be for USC, how well will they play defensively? They masked their mediocre defense by doing something you need to do. You need to get takeaways. Well, USC's defense has been getting takeaways the last couple of years. But you actually have to watch the games. And as you know, I've watched enough Pac-12 football, and I've explained that before. Like, okay, Penn State's at home, later game, 3:30 game, whatever. I'll get home in time to watch the Pac-12 dark game. Or on the road, come back, you land, you come back here. All right, great. What game can I watch? The Pac-12 game's on right now. So I watched a fair amount of USC football the last couple of years. And if you watch the games, there's no question they get takeaways. But my goodness, they get gashed on yardage. Over and over again, they get gashed for yards. And Jack and I were listening. We had to be coming back from Maryland. We were driving back together to State College. And we're listening to Pete Arbogast, who's a terrific. Pete's a great guy and a terrific play-by-play announcer for USC. And they're playing Washington. And we're listening to the game. And Pete, there they go again. There they go again. So that's a big question for them. Deshaun Foster's a new head coach at UCLA. Chip Kelly didn't want to deal with all the outside stuff anymore. He's a coordinator at Ohio State. So Deshaun Foster, first year Deshaun Foster head coach, brings in Eric Bieniemy as the offensive coordinator. They do have their quarterback returning. That helps. They have some returning players, but you sense it's a rebuild there. And Washington's a rebuild. They lost 16 starters, new coaching staff. Jed Fish comes in with his staff from Arizona. You know, most of the guys are from Arizona. And they have to start over again in some ways. I mean, not from scratch, but, you know, they have some transfers that can help out. But that was obviously going to the national championship. That was a really, really, really good Washington team last year. But that's what comes to the table, and they're going to have to learn all this. And I haven't even factored in the travel yet. I mean, Penn State has to go through a logistical checklist to make sure they've got the USC game taken care of. Imagine being the USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington travel departments, sports science departments. Because they were going to have to do that multiple times a season, as opposed to Penn State doing it once. And the Big Ten did it right, to their credit, because there are 14 Eastern and Central time zone teams that have to go to the West Coast. Of the 14, 8 of them, including Penn State, have a bye week following their West Coast trip. The other 6 have home games following their West Coast trip. So there was at least some thought put in to the schedule and what it looks like. Now, to me, the one that, when I look at, could make an immediate impact. Now, Oregon can make an immediate impact, and so could USC. But I look at Utah in the Big 12. Utah in the Big 12 plays a different kind of game. Cam Rising is back for his 17th season. Kidding. Tight end oriented, power up front, want to run the ball in a conference that wants to throw the ball.
Let's be honest, that's a better matchup for them than the Pac-12 was. I can't. Who's
Sure.
going to? They have to be the favorite in the Big 12, don't they?
Oh, no question. And not only that, their schedule, they've got Arizona, Arizona State, and Colorado on the schedule. So the other 3 that came in with them, Colorado led the way in. So that's 3 of their 9 games where they have familiarity with the opponent. So they've got to learn 6. So that's 3 of the 9 that they already know. They've got a real feel in Arizona, a real feel in Arizona State, and obviously Colorado, which has usually been the season-ending game for them. And I think that they're a team that they've got a chance to win it. Who's better than they are? I think they close out with Oklahoma State. I think that's their last game. And Oklahoma State usually, Gundy's done a good job with them. Mike Gundy's done a good job with them there.
I think if Fish was still at Arizona, I think maybe you say Arizona in that offense, but I don't think you can say that now until we've figured out what the new coach is going to do and how they respond to him.
I thought one of the more intriguing bowl games I watched was Arizona and Oklahoma. I mean, I thought that was a really good game, the Alamo Bowl. I just think that that they're a team that's going to be a tough matchup in that conference, and I think they're ready to make that kind of move. I mean, Kyle Whittingham is a terrific coach. And you know what? He's smart. He knows what works for his team, his school, his style. He doesn't try to be anything that he's not. And they got a pretty good home field advantage, too, at Rice Eccles. But I think they're of the ones that make the move, right? Watch out. Watch what Utah does in the Big 12. By the way, I never talked about the ACC. There's a good reason. The 3 teams they added brought the quotient down. We'll come back with more in a moment. This is brought to you by Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
There's something to be said about a sale with a handshake, a service technician who really knows what he's doing. They can explain it in English what the problem is. There's nothing better than having that friend you could trust in the area. That's Sunbury Motors, where you get selection, knowledgeable salespeople, and prices that fit your budget, and more important, that friend you can trust. Welcome to Sunbury Motors, Kia, Ford, and Hyundai. You could shop other dealers and compare prices, but at Sunbury Motors, you get their lowest price promise. They research the current used vehicle market and guarantee their used car prices are the lowest. If you find a lower price, Sunbury Motors will beat it. 3 dealers all in one. See their full new and pre-owned inventory at sunburymotors.com. Pick out a vehicle you like and schedule your test drive online. Follow them on Facebook. Sunbury Motors Ford and Hyundai, North 4th Street, Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf.
Spring has sprung, and it's time to dust off those insurance policies. For over 100 years, the Purdy Insurance Agency has been protecting families and businesses of the greater Susquehanna Valley and beyond. With the experience of our trained and knowledgeable staff, you can rest assured that your needs will be evaluated and met by some of the industry's best representatives. No matter what your insurance needs are, call Purdy Insurance today at 570-286-5855 or visit our website at purdyinsurance.com to see what we can do for you.
Yeah. Okay. Great to have you with us on the show today. There'll be no Matt Catrillo tomorrow. I think it's appropriate he's at Wildwood.
Probably screaming at the seagulls.
Imagine the kids acting up in the car with him driving.
How do we know they aren't driving?
That's true. They break every other law with those kids.
I have faith in Lisa.
Her, I have tremendous faith in. He scares me. This half hour brought to you by Purdy Insurance. Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.